Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another episode of On the Couch with Creatives. I say good morning because I'm here in the UK, but good afternoon or good evening if you're anywhere else in the world. I'm Melanie Perry.
And I'm Julie Hyde-Mew.
And this is On the Couch with Creatives. Fans and followers of the show will know that we're part of the Creatives Group, a professional private networking group for creative professionals everywhere. Together, we help you create, grow, and develop your creative business. If that sounds like you and you'd like to join us and find out more, please do connect with us after the show. But this is On the Couch. So, Julie, who have we got on the couch today?
Well, on the couch today is designer and animator CARLO SantorIello, all the way from Spain. And he deals with multinational brands such as Garnier, Magnum, and Lipton's iced tea. The projects he delivers include store designs, print materials, immersive AR and VR experiences, 3D animations, and CGI images. Oh, a man of many talents and skills. So let's bring him on the couch, Melanie. Hello, Carlo.
Hello. Hiya.
Thank you for joining us on the couch. My word. I don't know where to start with you. You seem to be so multi-talented. Can we just start with your name? Because you live in Spain, but you're Italian, but you sound English.
Yes. Well, yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm English, but both my parents are Italian. So they're Italian immigrants, and I was born in England, but obviously got an Italian name. And now, at the moment, I'm in Spain because me and my family we sold up 2018, so getting a few years ago now. And we set off with the intent of doing a bit of digital nomading and traveling around the world. And then COVID hit, and that sort of curtailed that a little bit. So it's been a bit of a stuttery sort of start. And we've ended up where we are at the moment is in just south of Valencia, which is lovely part of the world. So yeah.
And you obviously work remotely then, do you?
Yes, yeah. Yes, I work fully remotely, and I had been doing that for a while before we sold up. I was working remotely, and it became sort of apparent that I was doing more and more remote work and not actually meeting many of my clients face to face. So that was why my wife suggested the idea of selling up and traveling, and it seemed like a good idea. So, and then COVID has actually made that even more of a sort of standard thing to do. So it's kind of worked in my favor in that respect a little bit.
Yeah. The internet has just totally changed all our lives.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because before that, I was always a little bit wary. When I spoke to a new client, I was always a bit wary about telling them that wherever I was, if I wasn't in the UK at that time or that I was working remotely, and it always felt a little bit, not that anybody really minded, but it always felt I was a bit hesitant to say that. But then after COVID, it just became sort of such a normal thing that people expect you to be, no one really even questions where you are now because it's remote. You could be anywhere, sitting anywhere. So, yeah.
I think the world has radically changed because people have realised that just because people are working remotely doesn't mean they're not working.
Yes,
they can work just as well, if not better.
Well, yeah, better. Yeah, I would say. Yeah, I mean, even if you're working not just for yourself but for a company, I think working from home works for so many people. Because when I used to work in business for different companies, I used to commute such a lot because I lived just in a little town in the middle of England, Northamptonshire, and there wasn't a huge amount of work there. So all my jobs ended up being, sometimes I'd commute an hour away, and it's like that's just wasted time. And then you get there, you're knackered, you leave, you get home really late. So it's not, working from home works, I think, for a lot of things. Not everything, because face-to-face stuff does have its place, but you can always get around it, I think.
Let's go back to right from the beginning. Let's go back to your childhood, because you were obviously a very creative child.
Yeah. So that's from an early age. Yeah, that's what I was always used to like making things. When I had like making little figures or making spaceships out of toilet roll. Silver foil was one of my favourite things. I used to nickel my mum's silver foil and make things with it. And it was always something that I was interested in before I even, was aware that I was interested in it. I was always drawing and making things. So that was And my earliest sort of idea was that I would like to do something like that as a job, maybe an illustrator, something like that. But going through sort of the school system and things, that never really felt like it was a viable career option in those days. So it's sort of
they really have to start focusing more on art at the school,
yeah,
and music, and those kind of subjects, because there are some people who absolutely excel at that.
Yes, yeah, there's a lot. It's always, I think it's even now, I mean, I think even now it's still considered almost like a secondary subject. It's never really considered as serious as anything else, so it's
Like science and biology and maths, and if there are any cuts, they cut the art. It's
yeah,
unbelievable, because not everybody is a mathematician.
No, that's right. I mean, I was terrible at school. Like, not terrible. I enjoyed school as going to school. I didn't have a bad time, but in classes and stuff, I was always, when I was at school, there was still, I don't know if it's probably still the same, but bottom sets, and they used to call them bottom sets. So you were in, the bottom set, and it sets you up for a certain sort of mindset that you're, below everybody else. Because I was terrible at spelling. My handwriting is still awful now, but and that was the sort of way they sort of measured intelligence, I think, back then. And you just sort of got slotted into that role, and they never explored whether there was any other option, or is this child good at, music or art or anything. It was always, you can't write or spell, so you're sort of done for, really.
It's very stifling unless you have parents who really encourage you in any kind of artistic endeavor as a small child.
Yes.
You're stuffed.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and I think even because my parents came from that sort of hard, my mum didn't really go to school. She got sent to England when she was 13 and went straight to work. And it was, so she was there from very much a mindset of you work, you just work, and it wasn't. They didn't really value the arts really either. So it wasn't sort of not that she never told me not to draw or anything, but it was never my I never had the notion that could be something you could do for a living, sort of thing. So
hold on, your mother came to the UK at 13.
Yes.
And you're not exactly a greybeard. So when was that?
When my mum came to the UK, that would have been the 60s. I think my mum and dad both came over in the 60s.
But even wasn't child labour?
Well, yes, yeah.
Child labour then?
Yeah, well, I guess it should have been. Yeah, I mean, it is a weird thing, but yeah, she was. So I think in Italy at the time, it was she was the oldest girl, so it was very much a look after the children sort of role that she had. And I don't think they valued education within that much, especially with the girls in the family. So she always just worked. And then when she came to England, I mean, at the time, they didn't even know that they spoke a different language in England. So it was a bit of a shock to her. So she got sent here, and then my granddad, her dad, was working on a farm, and she got sent to sort of work as the house sort of maid on the farm for the family, and that was kind of it. She went back to school, college later in life, in her 40s, and learned English and writing and all that, which was always really good. To speak to my mum, she hasn't even got an accent or anything, but so education was difficult for her because she never did it herself, so she didn't really understand it. So yeah.
And your father?
And he came over similarly. He was a little bit older, but he came over. He was about 16, and he actually came over brought his younger brothers and sisters over on. It was a thing they did at the time where the British government were looking for people to come over and work in the brick factories in Bedford. So he came over to work in the brick factories, and apparently they gave them their boat fare and a packed lunch, and came over, and he went to work in the brick factories over there. But then he became a barber. So he's quite a successful sort of local businessman as a barber. He's still doing it now. He's in his 80s, but he still does it now. So it's yeah. So yeah, so that's what I mean. They're both sort of, it was work and art.
And hardly any play, I assume.
For them, yeah.
Okay, so how did you get out of the factory farmhouse grind?
Well, yeah, I mean, it took a long time. So I mean, yeah, like I've always been creative and sort of done that in my spare time. I was in a band for years and years. Like that was after I thought, you know, art, perhaps there was no career in that. I decided that I'd decide to be a rock star instead, because that seemed like an easier route, which obviously is not. So I did that for quite a few years, and just worked in. I got jobs in factories. I started in a factory on the shop floor, basically, and gradually worked myself up through that company into the office. Just did various jobs in the factory, and then eventually got a job in the office, just because they got a new computer system basically installed. And at that time, the manager of I was in the paint shop at that point, so it's sort of art, but just spray painting things. He couldn't operate the computer system, so I was sort of the youngest in the thing, so I just used to do that for him, and that sort of led me into the office. And then when all the computer system had died down, they wanted to put me back on the shop floor, but I didn't. At that point, I'd been in there about a year, so I didn't want to go back onto the shop floor. So I sort of fought my corner a bit, and they had an opening in the drawing office. So they just sort of stuck me in there to see if I could do it, and I went in there and sort of learned to do 2D CAD. And that was sort of a point where I sort of started working in more office-based, white-collar jobs.
Did you have one of those huge big drawing tables?
No, it was on a computer then. I have
right, okay.
Yeah, I have used one of those, but it was so this would have been the 90s. It was computer, but it was all 2D sort of CAD systems, and just line drawings to make aluminium rainwater goods was what it was. Super exciting, but it was
But people still have to draw those things out. And this is what irritates me about schools. It's like, if you've got a kid who makes models and can build things, especially like in 3D, that kid could go on to be an engineer or whatever. Yeah. Now, they might not be particularly good at maths or that at that point in time. Most kids, and Julie will relate to this and tell you her story in a minute, but if you can understand, like, kids get maths when they understand how it relates to the thing that they really love. So if you're talking to a kid about maths in terms of design and structure and making something, they would get it a lot more than trying to just sit down on their bottom and learn their times tables by rote, or trigonometry, or this is a trigonometry story, Julie, you're going to tell in a minute about that.
No, I've told that story before, Melanie.
Yeah, but Carlo hasn't heard it. Carlo hasn't heard it. But it's about making maths relatable. And I think there's a whole host of, up and coming engineers in the making that are just getting missed because they're not being spoken to in the right language at school. Just because they build things or doodle things doesn't mean they're daft. No,
well, that was the other thing I used to get told off all the time for drawing. Head in the clouds was always a thing, daydreamer, all the things that I use now to essentially make money were things that were really written off. And that was one of the big things, because they thought I was disruptive, because I was, I was always drawing. I used to, even when I worked at places, if I was in a meeting, I'd always be doodling and stuff. But I'm thinking, but that's how that's how I take sort of notes and things. It looks like nonsense to everybody else, but it is, like, in my head, it makes a little bit of sense usually. So,
everybody's brain is wired completely differently from anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's, everybody has to have a unique channel to learn in. Yeah.
But you have an engineering background, don't you?
Well, yeah, kind of. Yeah. So, so from that job when I was in the drawing office, I ended up doing several sort of 2D drafting jobs, and ended up the pinnacle. I ended up being a roofing and cladding draftsman, which is quite a niche job, but it's when you've got a large sort of industrial building, like a factory or a school or warehouse or anything like that. Really, you have the cladding and the systems that they build the outside of the building with. That's sort of an industry of people that do that. And that roofing and cladding draftsmen, you draw up all those details and you order all the stuff and sort of help to part of the design team for the building. So I did that for a few years, and that was great because it gave me, I had quite a lot of responsibility, and I had to go to design meetings with it, massive design meetings with these architects and things, and talk through these buildings. And it was quite a step up for me in terms of, my own confidence and things like that. So, and then from that, because it was buildings and some of the details we had to do were quite complex, and again, because my maths wasn't very good, one of the things we had to do was, when you've got it's probably a bit boring, when you've got all these different roofs coming in from a different angle, and they create a compound angle, and there's mathematics to work out that. So if you want to make something to fit in there, you have to work out the maths, and I couldn't work out the maths because it was beyond me. So I found a 3D software online and started teaching myself that, so I could make these things. So basically it was a shortcut to not having to work out the maths. And once I discovered 3D, it was kind of that re-triggered sort of what I used to do as a kid of making things, and it was kind of doing that on the screen instead of with my hands. So that sort of really clicked with me, and I taught myself 3D modeling through free software at the time, and made a little portfolio, and that got me my first job as a design engineer, which was another step up, which was really, really good. Yeah, so I worked as a design engineer for just over 4 years in aerospace and rail, so it's quite a good sort of high-end company. But yeah, I'm not a trained engineer or anything, but I learned on the job, and did that for a few years. And that's where, probably getting ahead of myself, but that's where this company that I formed doing the animations and things came from, essentially from that role I had doing that.
Did you find it easier, just going back to sort of as a child, you were really keen on making things in 3D. When you found the 3D software, did it really click that much better with you? Because again, maybe your brain sees things in 3D rather than 2D. So when it sort of 3D, did you find it a lot easier and thinking, yeah, this is my thing? Yeah,
to me, yeah, it did. It worked. I mean, the other way around as well, because when I first did the 2D CAD, they sort of sat me on the machine to see if I could do it, and showed me a few pointers, and that was all 2D in those days, and you had to sort of you drew flat views, and that had to generate a 3D image. But I found that quite easy, and I think that was because that's how my brain works, that I can see things in 3D. So it was kind of so it was, I can interpret it that way, and the other way around. Yeah, but I did find 3D software sort of it did click. Yeah, for me.
Great. So when did you stop being an employee and strike out on your own?
So what year was that? So I think it's been about six years now since I've been on my own. I'd have to check my timings, but I can't. Yeah, about 6-7 years. So I was just 41, so 7 years ago. So I got to sort of 40, and I was working. I've always, in the back of my mind, always thought it would be great to work for myself, and I never really had that sort of vague idea that I'd like to work for myself, because I hated commuting. I never, I always struggled with getting to work on time, which was always a big contention with employers. Although I always, I'd always do my hours, I'd do over my hours, but there was always that still where I worked, all the places I worked still had that Victorian sort of here at 8, and that's it. Yeah, and literally, and even if I'd commute for an hour and I'd be stuck on the road that I couldn't get in, the boss would be waiting there tapping his phone and tapping his watch. So I always thought it would be nice to work from home as well, because you spend so much time at work. I remember when my son was born, actually, I was still working for people, and then I went to work in the morning. When I came back in the afternoon, he was walking, so you sort of miss all of that sort of stuff, because all the things you miss just stuck in traffic, essentially, a lot of the time. So
sad, very sad. That's kind of human condition.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I always had it in the back of my head that I'd want to work for myself. And while I was doing the design engineer role, I sort of ended up shoehorning quite a bit of creativity into that, and I ended up creating a role that sort of, I was half in the engineering department. I was in the engineering department, but I also worked with sales and marketing to develop all our, we called it visual marketing sort of assets.
You mean the packaging and all that?
Well, no, more sort of our
or business cards, letters, letterheads, that kind of thing.
No, more like presentations for sales to sell our products, or if I design a product, I'd create like nice images for the sales guys to sell it, and then that became part of the wider company where I'd sort of create visual assets mainly to all sorts of different things, but it was a sort of role that straddled engineering and sales. But in engineering, it was really frowned upon. So they used to call it pink and fluffy. So if I'd do anything that was too fancy, they'd think it was, because it wasn't nuts and bolts. It was, I was wasting time making things look pretty, because an engineer will see something and they'll be like, I know what that is. I don't need to see anything too,
But a non-engineer would probably look at the packaging first. I mean, packaging and the whole branding around products, that's what sells them.
Exactly. It's exactly. It's super important. And I think when I started at that company in the engineering department, we were still kind of interacting with our clients were engineers as well. So that sort of facts and figures and tables of performance and technical drawings worked because the kind of people we were selling to understood that. But as time moved on pretty quickly, it became, buying groups became more varied and they weren't necessarily technical. So you could go to a meeting and show them all the, look what our train door does, all the things. And they think, well, I can't understand that. So that's when I started doing the images and then later the animations to sort of explain how things work. And then it became, when clients started responding well to it, then the company sort of thought, actually, this is, probably not just pink and fluffy. It is actually quite a useful tool. And we got a marketing guy in Tim who was really good, and he came in and changed sort of the culture of how the company worked and approached things. And me and him started working really closely together, doing this sort of stuff, just presentations for clients and things. And it was me and him that started this company originally, 099 Creative. So I eventually left there because I was getting bogged down as that's the other thing in design. As you get higher up, you do less and less design. So by my last sort of year of that, I wasn't doing any drawing of any description. I was just in meetings every day doing project plans, lots of stuff that is boring to me.
And that's when the creative heart of you starts to die, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because you're not, you're literally just having meetings all day about whether a bolt will shear and how many people it will kill if it comes up, all this stuff. It was a bit, and I realised that, I'd sort of ended up in that, and I was really happy as a design engineer to start with, because to me it felt like this is what I used to do as a kid. I'm making things out of things, and and I did like a lot of aspects of it, but the more sort of technical side of it, I've got an interest in that. It's not what I'm really good at. So I always felt like, as well, because I wasn't qualified. There's people, there that had been to university, and I was always felt playing catch up a little bit. So, so I left that job to go and work in retail design, because I thought that would be interesting. And that really wasn't. So I went to do that.
Why wasn't it interesting?
Oh, because I thought it would be all about design and all about, something interesting and making things that looked visually nice, and you wouldn't have to worry too much about how it was built and all of that sort of stuff. And in some ways it was, but it's also very like the profit margins are really pushed down. So everything has to be super cheap. Everything has to be really quick. There's lots of people involved, lots of project managers, lots of meetings back and forth. And it was just chaotic and not really. It was neither design nor engineering, because the engineering was so simple, that wasn't exciting. And the design was, basically you didn't really have any leeway on it when you're working with big brands. You can't have much say in how anything looks or how it's going to come out. So it was a bit that was a bit disheartening. But that's when I sort of realized, if I want these sort of roles and I want to do this sort of thing and do something creative, I don't think anybody's going to employ me to do that. So I kind of have to do it myself. And that's when I talked to Tim about it. He was unhappy where he was, and so we sort of formed this 099 as a marketing company initially for engineering companies to explain their ideas to non-engineering people. So sort of thing we were doing when we were working together for all sorts of advanced engineering, and that's what we started to do. Sort of.
But you have some very big clients now.
Well, no.
We're talking, when I say big, we're talking multinational companies.
Well, that's well, when we started, we were doing, because we worked from, the company that I used to work was in Cambridge, and Cambridge is a big centre for composite construction. So like aerospace, is a big aerospace industry there and that sort of stuff. So we were working for those sort of companies and just doing little promotional videos and things like that. And it became like apparent that most of the stuff we were getting was the visual stuff. So it was all the animations and the images and stuff. So we parted company after about a year because it realised that was kind of what I do, and that was going to be a thing in itself. So I sort of changed the direction of the company to being just an animation and visual sort of company. And Tim went and he does sort of company transformation and stuff like that. So we sort of split. But
you still have a company together, do you?
No. So we split from that. So for the last
completely. Okay.
So for the last 5 years, it's just been my company. But it was important because without Tim, I don't think I would have started. I don't know whether I would have started it on my own. I think I needed that sort of.
But you're still friends, are you?
Yeah, we're still friends. Yeah, we are still friends. Yeah, I mean, it is, when you start a business, it is a strain when, because at the start, I left we both had no jobs, so I just left work, he'd left work, and obviously we had households to run, and it was scary because and we didn't get work. It's hard to get work to start with. I mean, it's a difficult thing, as everybody who starts their own business would know. Getting clients, and it can become.
You just need that one client and that one project, and then suddenly it starts to snowball.
Yeah, it does, but it's up and down, and especially when we perhaps didn't have a solid direction as to what we wanted to do. So it did cause some friction, but yeah, we're still friends now. You'd have to ask him from my point of view, but yeah, no, we still talk. And I've worked for him when he's worked at different companies since then. I've worked for him as a subcontractor doing this when he's gone into companies to say we need to do it. And so yeah, we have it's a good.
So tell us about some of your projects that you've done that we could recognise. As buyers.
Yeah, well, I think I do a mixture of things really. So with my own company, I tend to do the whole start to finish animation, sort of product animation. That'll be sort of smaller clients. So where they'll come to me and they might not even have an idea for what they want to do. So I'll do everything from the storyboard all the way to the final edit and everything like that. And then for the bigger brands I've worked with, that's usually part of an agency. So the other thing I do is I'll work just as an artist, 3D artist or editor or whatever they need for that particular job. I'll just go in as part of another team and do work with a team, just providing whatever I need to provide for that. And that's when I work for sort of bigger clients, like done some stuff for Garnier, which was quite an interesting, because that was an AR portal for their night serum, I think it was day and night serum, and they were launching this using influencers. So it's quite an interesting job, because I was doing that through a marketing agency that worked with influencers to market products. So companies will come to them, brands will come to them and get them to run a campaign. And part of this campaign was they wanted a filter for Instagram for their influencers to use to promote their products. So I built that, me with another guy, technical guy that I work with, who's a developer. Wheeled Creative is the company. We work together to create this for an agency for Garnier's influencers.
Oh, wait. You said a filter. Does that mean, because I know what filters are.
Yes.
Put them in front of you and you look absolutely beautiful and very, very young. You could be 8. So they were lying.
No. So yeah, so it's called a so yeah, that is what a filter usually is. So a filter is usually anything that when you've got like your app on Instagram or Snapchat and you can click it on, it can make you look like younger, or you look like a cat or whatever. So
here I am in all my wrinkled glory, and I'm using the night and day serum. Boom! Look.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't that, because this was actually a bit more. We used the technology of a filter, so you'd have in Instagram, you can go on it and do your story and do a film. I mean, I don't use social media very much, but this was actually an AR experience. So it didn't do anything to you, but what you did was it created a portal in your space. I think I sent Mel an example, so hopefully you'll be able to show this. A portal in wherever you are, and you can go through that portal, and you went into this, it was called like the Vitaverse, which was Garnier's sort of multiverse, and then you had a little pot of the serum there, and it was like a little cave sort of laboratory and a little tranquil oasis, and you clicked on it, it went from day to night, and it's just like a little experience really. And so it didn't do anything to the person. So
I'm glad you've explained that.
Yeah, but it was still called so they still call it a filter because you're using it through but it was an AR experience, augmented reality.
They sent you any pots of their serum that you could try?
No, I didn't get any. No.
You did get this back, Garnier, come on.
No, I'm sure it's very good.
So how do people, if they want to use your services, how do they get hold of you?
On LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is what I use. Pretty much everything I do is through LinkedIn. I've got an Instagram account, but I just really use that to put stuff on as a sort of portfolio, really. I haven't got many followers on there, and I don't know how to get followers on Instagram. So I go, LinkedIn is kind of how I get.
Do they just type in search for designer and your name will pop up?
I think if you put 3D artist in, it might come up, kind of at the bottom of the pile. I mean, that is one of the tricky things about. Generally, I mean, it's one of the tips, I guess. I chase work. I mean, I don't get much inbound because I'm as a businessman, I'm probably on, and I don't market myself very well. But I do a lot of cold calling, cold DMing, cold emailing, whatever you call it, and I look at LinkedIn. If I see an opportunity, I'll try and get in there, and that's the way I do it. I know it's not very efficient, really. The ideal thing would be for people to just be funneling to my website and then just come into me. I have started to get some more inbound from the last year, but it's very, very up and down. But it's one of the
details going across the screen of your LinkedIn profile and also your website, and hopefully now people obviously were tuning into our gorgeous show to watch you, and they'll know exactly what you do, and you'll have the phone ringing off the hook, Carlo.
Yes, hopefully. Yeah. So
what are your top 3 tips for people who are creative like you are, and want to get into the 3D artist industry or the animation industry, the design industry?
Yeah, so I'd say the top tip is probably like an obvious one, which is just have a go at it. And I would recommend, there's a lot of people worry about what software they're going to use, because there is a lot of softwares, and if you look at, if you're sort of vaguely interested in the industry and you look online, you might find a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of things there are to use, and some of them are very expensive and some of them are free and not great. But what I would suggest people use is Blender. It's a program called Blender 3D, and that's what I used to do all of my stuff. And it's actually completely free. It's a free open source software made in the Netherlands, and it was set up for that reason, to be open source, and it's always going to be that way, and it's getting better and better, and it's free, so anybody can open it. It runs pretty well on most computers. So, and there's loads of tutorials that people can follow and have a look and see whether they, you know, whether they like it, if it's something that they would be interested in doing, because and now there's lots of demand for 3D artists, I would say, because there's lots of stuff that use it. You know, people use it as games, TV, websites, you know, product websites, people use it for that. So it's kind of, there's lots of different things you can do with it. So it's more sort of a case of what is it that you think would interest you as an artist, and what is it that you want to concentrate on. But I would say the first thing to do is just have a go, get onto, get Blender and have a go. And then the second thing, if you want to get better, is to get a portfolio and send it to people and get them to critique it, which is hard for any artist, but it's something that I've found, and I sort of started doing this probably only a year and a bit ago, but send it to people who are in the industry that you want to get into and are of a position that, you know, their opinion would mean something, and get it critiqued and ask people to. And I was surprised at how many people will actually help. Lots of people are really, you know, eager to help, and they'll say it. And it's as in any creative industry, I think there's a certain amount of ego involved, I think, that can get bruised when you put yourself out there. It's quite a daunting thing, because you put yourself out there and, you know, it's not going to be, no one's going to think it's great straight off. It's going to be, you know, there's going to be criticisms that come back, but learning to accept those and you know, work with them is a really good thing to do. And then I've just got a last one. Yeah, and so I've already, one of them was already tied up with the first one, which was don't get hooked up on software, just learn the techniques first. And the other thing is look for opportunities. So everything that I've done is I've found an opportunity to use it by just keeping my ears and eyes open, and you'll scour LinkedIn for people that you think could help you, and, you know, connect with people, connect with other artists, comment on their stuff, just, you know, try and treat it as a community thing. And there's a good community of people out there, and people do generally like helping each other, I think.
So we find that with Creatives private networking group, we have such a diverse range of people in various creative industries, and they just help each other. So a website designer will suddenly start talking to a children's author, and she'll say, "Oh, I need a website. Okay, I'll help you." And it's actually been amazing just how helpful people are, and some of them giving up their time to help and encourage other members that want to get into the industries they're in. So people are more helpful than you are led to believe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, as long as you look for help in the right areas, and yeah, most people have been. Yeah, that's definitely what I found. And my show reel has, you know, been massively improved by sending it to people in the industry that I want to get into. Because at the moment I work mostly B2B with, you know, clients doing sort of commercial work, but what I'd really like to do is get into film, TV, adverts, that sort of thing. So that's where my new show really is more geared towards that, and that's where I'm sort of moving in that direction. Well,
you should talk to one of our children's authors. She wants to turn her books into an animated series.
That is actually a project I'm doing. I should have mentioned actually with a children's author called Jay Stansfield, and it's a thing called The Squibbles, which is these great sort of characters, colouring book and characters and things, and we're currently making that into a TV show at the moment. So that's I think there's an example of that in the thing as well. But yeah, that's I should have mentioned that earlier. But yeah, that's that sort of thing. Yeah, and that was a chance encounter by someone else. You two could do this together. It's great, and I love working with other people, other creatives, because when you work on your own, it can get a bit lonely after a while. So
when you're part of a community, you feel supported, and you feel as though you can reach out if you need help. People become your friends, you know.
Yeah, it's good.
Massively. Yeah, I'll be reaching out to you, Carlo, because I've got an idea for children's TV animation.
Have you?
That's yes, it's very exciting. But so I'll be looking for artists and designers, and I'll probably talk to Thorbo as well, because I want to turn it into a game, whether it becomes a series or a game first, I'm not quite sure.
Oh,
It
right.
will need to be animated and whatever, so there's a lot going on in the background.
Yeah.
But I might get a call.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah,
Keep in touch. Keep in touch.
Exactly.
that is a good. The game and into, because that's recently with Scribbles, we've took that into Unreal Engine, which is a game engine, to do the actual animation in there. But also then obviously the assets are all available to make into a game. So there's a lot of that's what I mean. There's a lot of crossover between games, TV, films. They're all, and there's lots of crossover sort of things to do.
There has to be these days. It's got to be multi-channel, multi-purpose, because it's about, I mean, obviously companies want to make as much money, but I'm going to write an article on it actually. But one thing that I've noticed is that with kids TV, because I thought this something that I'm developing, but actually my son, the sort of age grade, looking at the age range and listening to my son's friends at school, he's 9.
Oh, right, yeah.
And thinking all they talk about is YouTube and Roblox, and it's like, and I was thinking, is kids TV dead? My son does not watch the TV.
No.
He doesn't watch it. He is glued to YouTube and screamy Americans who are playing Roblox.
Yeah. Roblox is an interesting thing, because it is. I mean, there's talk of the metaverse, and so, no one, people ban the word around metaverse, but the closest thing we have to that, is Roblox, because there's so much stuff that you can do in that, and it's a creator platform. And for us, it's kind of like, what is it? But it's an interesting, what you can do in there is some serious things. And I think it won't be long before there is like business involved in, well, there kind of is already. You can buy.
Yeah, you monetize, right? I pay, my son doesn't get paid pocket money. Oh no, he gets paid Robux.
Yeah, it's cryptocurrency. See, so it's a model. They're living in a kind of the world that corporate people are trying to build. Kids are already doing it. Roblox, and Fortnite, when he's a bit older, he'll be. Yeah, but that's become a creator platform too. It's interesting. It is interesting.
It is. So yeah, I might have to start selling my stuff to Roblox, because at least get the guys on my content. Right. On that note, my cards. We've got the card. I valued them. My favourite bit. My cards. These are lovely soft cards. I get a bit gooey when I get my cards out, because it's my little special moment of my having a moment. Right, I'm going to run my finger along the cards. Carlo, you just yell stop when you want me to pull a card.
Okay, stop.
Right, what did you pick? What did you pick? Ooh, this is quite a good one as well. They're so relevant to what we've been talking about, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the conversation. You picked well-being. Well-being,
yeah.
Which is quite good with your digital nomading and choosing a lifestyle that is best for you and your family. So as we're creatives, naturally we're going to ask you creatively about what well-being means to you. So Carlo, well-being, what does it look, feel and sound like to you?
What does well-being look like? Well-being probably looks like a sunny beach. That's the first thing that came to mind. Yeah, like a morning sunny beach. Yeah, a few little waves and warm. Yeah, sun.
It's absolutely peeing it down. It's been peeing it down the last few days here in England. So yes, I need some sunshine.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's full summer here. Well, not full summer. It's nice now. 25 degrees.
Nice. What does it feel like?
What does it feel like? It feels. It's an interesting one, isn't it? What does it feel like? I was going to say warm, but that's kind of the same as the sunshine. Feels free. Feels free, unrestrained, and floaty, and kind of unrestrained.
What does it sound like?
What does it sound like? Sounds like wind in trees, forests.
Yeah, I like that. What does it smell like?
Pine trees and hot sand.
Pine trees and hot sand.
Yeah, because when you get the pine trees, it's one of the sounds you get that I always associate with when we were little and we used to go to Italy, and you get it here. So when sometimes we have a forest that's leading down to the beach or the coast, and the ground is quite sandy, and it's when it's hot, you get that smell. You get it in the evening, and it's like a pine, but it's a different. It's not like a wet pine. It's dry, and it's kind of a So it's I think it's the hot sand and the pine needles.
Love that.
One day when we are not talking publicly, I'll take you through the forest. Has anybody taken you through the forest? It's a psychological thing.
No, I don't think so. No.
I'll take you through the forest one day. It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Carlo, thank you so much for coming on the couch with us. It's been
Thank you for having me.
Listening to you, and your career path is just amazing.
It has been a bit random, my career path.
But you look happy.
Yeah, I am happy now. Yeah, that's I mean, that's the other thing. Changing career at 40 was another big thing to do, and I kind of wish I'd done it earlier, but I don't know whether it would have worked earlier. So it's one of those things you never know, do you? But it's definitely works for me.
You probably weren't ready earlier.
No, exactly. Yeah. And I think it's a thing that's hopefully is going away a little bit, where people are write off people as they get older. Where I think that's coming round to people not doing that so much now, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. And if they do, we'll just go off and do it on our own, because
exactly. Yeah.
Age and experience, you can't knock having experience. And as you say, changing careers at 40, or some people I know, we had a lady, Sue Pavey, who's a children's author, on the couch a little while ago, and she started writing the children's books quite later in life.
50, not 40.
50s,
Oh, right. Yeah.
Sometimes I think you have to experience a certain amount of life before you can really get to your thing.
Yeah.
Kids today, yes, there are some talented artists, there's some talented, real talented youngsters out there, but until you've actually lived a certain amount of life experience, it's very different. Now, your attitudes and idealistic woo-woo that you had when you were like in your teens, the same as when you're an adult and you actually realise, that was a bit, not quite right. You change, you mature, and I think there is a big value to that.
And you appreciate things more, maybe, when you can appreciate things more when you've done other things that you do. It's sometimes it's about doing things you don't want to do, because you don't know what you want to do when you're that age. You might have an idea, but until you've done it, that's one of the things, isn't it? You get into a job. I think that sometimes is the problem if people train at something, go to university, and then they get a job in that, and they think, Christ, I don't like this much. But then you've invested so much time into it. It's kind of
Well, it's nice to see you living the dream in Spain.
Yes, thank you.
And the master of your own ship.
Yeah.
And once again, thank you so much for talking to us, and we'll obviously speak again.
Yes, thank you for having me on.
Thank you, and thank you to our wonderful audience for joining us and tuning in. But until next time, we'll see you.